Hey everyone, welcome to the show, My So-Called Fabulous. I'm Tiffany. Welcome everyone. And we are talking about something heavy today on this show for so many people. And you know, when you have someone in your life that has been affected by what we're talking about today, which is dementia and Alzheimer's, and I'm going to have these ladies explain the difference between the two. But last week we had a powerful conversation with Cheryl Harding about the mission and impact of James L. West Dementia Center. Today, we're continuing this conversation with educators from the actual James L. West in a more personal and practical way, not just what James L. West is. So, today on My So-Called Fabulous is one that feels especially important to so many of my followers and viewers, and especially these two women. We're talking about aging, dementia, and how it impacts individuals, not only the individuals, but the people that love them and care for them. Joining me today is Jaime, Cobb, Tinsley, and Hollie Lowe from the James L. West Center for Dementia Care. I recently, as of soon as last week, heard them speak. Their message truly stayed with me. It stayed with me to this very moment. Not just because what they share, but how they helped us understand the journey and what it actually looks like for families. Today, we're going to talk about the difference between normal aging, which this was huge for me because I walk into a pantry and think I have dementia because I can't remember what I went in there for. How to recognize the signs and how to have the conversations that we often avoid. Jaime, Hollie, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You are so welcome. So let's just dive right in. Last week, I saw you at a fundraiser here in Fort Worth, Texas, but I also want people to understand this is beyond Fort Worth. This is education that you two do, and you can tell more about your roles. But I want you to start out with why people are so confused. First of all, dementia and Alzheimer's. What's the difference?
Well, dementia is the umbrella term. So dementia is, it's a descriptive term for somebody that has symptoms that will interfere with their ability to get through their day-to-day life. And a lot of time that looks like, I walked into the pantry and I don't know why I walked in here, or did I put shampoo in my hair? And I can't remember. Did I take my medications? Getting lost in familiar places or confused in places you shouldn't be. And so all of these symptoms that we see, and there's over 30 common symptoms, is that right, for dementia. Now, Alzheimer's disease is the most common type of dementia, and there's over 100 different types of dementia, but Alzheimer's disease accounts for about 60 to 80% of anybody that has a diagnosis would have an Alzheimer's type diagnosis.
So the majority of people have the Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
And I reversed it in my head because a lot of times we are in denial with if you have a family member or friends
Mm-hmm.
with it, you do have that. Okay, I don't need to know this yet. Isn't it amazing that?
Sure.
Oh, I don't need to know that. Speaking of,
Mm-hmm.
last week, if you're on YouTube, you'll see this. They have this pamphlet. I'm sure people can get it.
Yes.
Know it before you need it. And this was the presentation. And there's so much information here. I've read this cover to cover. Definitely, but definitely knowing it before you need it. And you're at my age, 61, going, now wait, did I put my foundation on or not? Right?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What is the difference, Hollie, between normal aging and dementia?
Well, as Jaime was saying, we're all going to have those moments whenever did I put my foundation on? Here's a common one. Did I take my medicine this morning? Did I feed the dog? That's normal aging, and many times it's even stress related. But whenever it interferes with our day-to-day life, that's when we know this might be something we need to go ahead and let's talk to our doctor. And as you mentioned, family members and even the person who's having those symptoms can be in denial. We hear that word dementia. We think of the word Alzheimer's, and it can be a really scary, scary word. That's why we've got to educate about it. But when it's something that starts to interfere with day-to-day life, that's when we need to take further action.
So the difference between normal and something more is when you should seek help. And I have thought about this since I met you two. what kind of doctor do you go to? Because a lot of doctors don't even know, right? It's just is and there's a twofold question. The doctors don't even know, depending on the doctor, but there's so much new information.
Right. Ideally, you go see a team of people, right? That includes a gerontologist, a geriatrician, I think, but a neurologist, psychologist. So there's a team of people looking at all of these things because they'll do a battery of tests to see, they'll do full extensive blood workup, they'll do cognitive testing, psychosocial testing, imaging, and get this whole workup and to see, is it a diagnosis of dementia? Is it something else that can look like dementia? And then what are the next steps for that? Generally, a primary care physician should be referring you on to somebody. I know right now, Medicare has their cognitive testing that's been included. So annually, people on Medicare should be getting this cognitive testing that it would prompt a primary care physician to then refer you on to somebody that is an expert, whether it's a neurologist or a geriatrician, to get more of that testing. Do you have anything to add?
And also keep in mind, if we start at the primary care physician, like Jamie's saying, there are things that mimic dementia. And then we've got to keep in mind there's so much more to dementia than memory loss. As Jamie was saying, there's over 30 common symptoms to dementia. But memory loss can be caused by someone who's in a really deep depression. Memory loss can be caused by a vitamin imbalance. Memory loss can be caused by, there's many different things that can cause
Menopause.
reversible memory loss. Absolutely. Kind of a brain fog. It's very common in caregivers even to think, I've caught it. Because we talk a lot about you can't catch it. Dementia is not contagious. You can't catch it. But whenever you're taking care of someone day in and day out, you can kind of develop a brain fog. So starting at the primary care physician, doing the full battery of tests, including blood work. Because again, there are things that can mimic dementia.
So, Holly, you mentioned 30 things. Name a few. I mean, because I think, oh, it's just memory loss, period.
Sure. Well, of course, memory loss being the most common, and it's typically short-term or immediate memory loss. Some people keep their long-term memories always. They never lose those. But other things like having issues with rational decisions, being able to make a good judgment call, ADLs, which are activities of daily living. Maybe they're starting to have a hard time taking care of themselves or in the shower, putting on makeup, shaving. And the reason that we see someone starting to have some issues with that is because think of how many steps there are to getting up in the morning, getting ready, and getting dressed. So we might see someone who used to be very particular about the way they dress. They can still get dressed, but their clothes don't match anymore. That's one of the signs and symptoms of dementia. Or maybe they are just kind of doing things that you've never seen them do before. Gorging food, hoarding, that type of thing. So it can even look like, could this be some other type of, it might even fall under mental illness. When that's not what it is at all, it's dementia showing up. And the younger a person is, it takes so much longer for them to get diagnosed properly, because why, if someone's 48 or 52 or 55, would we automatically think dementia? We wouldn't. We would think it's something else. Although in people under the age of 65, the most common type of dementia now isn't Alzheimer's, it's frontotemporal dementia. That's just happened in the last couple of years. So we're seeing it more and more in people who are younger and younger because we can get it diagnosed. But those are some. Using inappropriate words, because the part of the brain that holds words like curse words or racial slurs or even sex talk, that part of the brain remains, and a person who's never used those words will start to use them to get their needs met.
Wow. The frontal lobe, is that what Bruce Willis is diagnosed?
It is.
Yes,
It is.
yes. And I've read his wife's book on
Yes.
caregiving. I mean, excellent. One of the many
Yes.
books.
Yes.
But obviously great books, but yeah. So you mentioned younger. What's the youngest y'all have seen in male or female?
Yeah.
I've actually got someone that I'm working with whose daughter is 28 years old and has early
What?
onset Alzheimer's disease.
And they're certain.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then I know of someone else who's 33, who is a woman that has early onset Alzheimer's. If a person is younger than 65, it's called early onset. Sometimes people will misuse the term early because they are in the early stages of the disease. Well, you could be 90 and be in the early stages, but it's not early onset. Early onset is if someone is younger than 65 when they develop dementia.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, this may be out of your wheelhouse, but we're hearing so much of this today. Is it because we haven't been talking about it, or is it always been here, or is this environmental? It's what is going on that it's what we're hearing a lot. We're hearing celebrities that are talking about it. And maybe it's because people are actually talking about it and writing about it and podcasting about it.
Yeah. So I would say yes to all those. You
Yes,
mentioned
yes.
off, yes. And I mean, we are able to diagnose it better. The more we're learning more and more about it, all the research that's out there, and we're getting more funding in the research, so we get to learn more about it. And I kudos to the celebrities that are willing to talk about it too, because it makes it easier for everyone else to talk about it. So we appreciate those that are willing to, like Emma Willis, to put it out there. I would say even Michael J. Fox. You know, I know he has Parkinson's disease, but it's also starting to develop some. I mean, there's a close tie to dementia with that as well. Just being able to talk about that because it makes it so much easier for the general public, and it help. There still is a stigma out there, but it helps reduce that stigma, and we can. And to podcasts like yours, Tiffany, to just let's talk about this because we know so many people are dealing with it, and they're more than likely doing it in silence, and they don't know where to turn. They don't know the questions to ask. And it adds to the embarrassment and adds to shame, which is completely unnecessary.
Right. Why do family members, in a lack of better words, I'm going to use this in layman terms, just poo-poo it and go, no, it's just the way they are? And is that denial on the family side? And do you see this?
Oh, we see it all the time because think about it. We, as the family member, we need it to be something else. It can't be that. We need it to be they're just getting old. And then we do some education or we watch a podcast like this and we find out that actual dementia and memory loss itself is not a normal part of aging. Slowing down is a normal part of aging. Why did I come in this room is a normal part of aging. But actual memory loss that is affecting a person's day to day is not a normal part of aging. And I think also because of the stigma, that's another reason that, and because we know that there's no cure, it has to be something else. And so many times it is denial. That's exactly what it is. But we also need to keep in mind with denial is part of grief. Denial is part of grief. And that's where grief comes in.
Yeah.
Jamie, other things?
Yeah, I would say, lived it, because it's not, well, it's something else. This will be fine. It'll be fine down the road. Everything is going to get better. And of course, I lost my train of thought, which is normal.
Your mother. Tell us
Yes,
about your experience with your mother.
My mother, we did have, so she's passed away. She passed away a long time ago from something seemingly unrelated to dementia, but she did have dementia symptoms those last few years of her life. And we were very good about, it's menopause. That was my go-to, was menopause.
Everyone's
of course
go-to.
that's what it is. She's just tired. She did have high anxiety. She always kind of had all of her life, and just maybe, the anxiety's just gotten a little bit worse. And then those are all fine and treatable and fixable. And of course, the symptoms were pretty subtle, and she would underplay them or make jokes about them or make an excuse about it. And and the excuses all seemed kind of, well, that's about right. She's not sleeping very well. I get it. I do the same. But then this symptoms became things that she was unaware of, or it was just really, eventually it became obvious that this is something more than just getting older, or something more than menopause, right? And then we as a family didn't address it early on a lot. I mean, some of it is just ignorance, I guess. A lot of it is denial, stuck our head in the sands for sure. But it is hard to come to terms with, as a child to a parent, to see them changing and the fear of, well, what does this mean for our future, but for their future, mom and dad's future? And that's, I would say, a big mountain you don't want to climb. So you just kind of stare at it. Paralysis, one of those coping skills. Not a good coping skill, but you just kind of stare at it. It is reality.
Yes.
But then, but it came to a point where we did have to start talking about it. And some of the conversations with mom went better than sometimes, and other times. Other times she just wasn't going to have the conversation. I'm not talking about this. She would make an excuse for it. Other times she would be more open to talking about it, or she would say, yes, I am concerned myself. So.
Well, bless you for
Yeah.
going through that,
Yeah.
for sure. Now, and of course, this is your career, for sure.
Yes.
Of
Yeah.
So you girls did such a powerful, your presentation was so powerful for so many people. And there were hundreds of people in this room at this fundraiser. And it struck so many people. Kind of walk us through what you did. We're not going to go through the whole thing, but what you did, because that is one of the most powerful, because it was reality. Walk us what y'all did, through what you did.
Well, one of the things we talked about was exactly what Jamie was just saying, is we did a role play of a family that just wasn't going to talk about it, where I was trying to get my friend to, let's talk about, your dad's been in the hospital. It seems like he keeps kind of having the boomerang back to the hospital. Why don't we talk about the future? And Jamie was saying to me,
Everything's fine. Everything's fixed. It's fine now. Drop it.
and I was trying to be the friend going, but maybe we need, and she just cut me off. And then we went back and we did it another way, where we said, can I tell you what I did with my family? I sat down with my mom and my brother to do my paperwork and asked mom to be a part of that conversation. So that was one of the ways, one of the things that we did, was how to make these difficult conversations a little more comfortable, and also so that families can come together, sit down, and know what their parents or their spouses really want. There's nothing worse than being in a crisis and trying to make a decision. We get called into those conversations a lot. A crisis has happened, because we're dealing with dementia, and it's a progressive disease, and there's going to be a hospital stay, there's going to be a major fall, there's going to be whatever it is, and now I've got to make a big decision, but we've never talked about someone's wishes.
Yeah. And we, I appreciate we honed in on it's just not one conversation. It's multiple conversations. So just like with anything in life, it's just kind of small steps, to get you there, small conversations. And then we kind of brought it home to brain health, talking about, okay, we're learning more about dementia and Alzheimer's disease. We're also learning more about how do we take care of our brain as we get older. And it starts at midlife or even younger.
So explain, that is one of my questions, because that was, of course, we're all eyes wide open. Tell us about brain health. Go ahead.
Well,
what do
how
we
much
need
time
to
do we have? No. There's a lot of things we can do for brain health, I think, and we can list them and probably in the priority where you want to start. But what I want to say is it's starting now. Don't wait until you think, well, I'll get to this when I retire, or I don't need to do it right now. Because what the research is showing is that we start doing these proven brain health strategies, and you get the most benefit when you start in midlife. And midlife is 30 to 60. 30 to 60. For all of these, that's a midlife. So when we start doing these brain health exercises that are really easy and practical things to do, and a lot of them we kind of know what to do, but are we doing it, right? I think that's the most important, because then it's part of just who you are as you get older. Now, I will also say it doesn't matter what age you are, start now. you can be 90 years old and start, and you will still see benefits. It's just the more benefits the earlier you start. But I know one of the best ones, and I think I'm kind of teetering, Holly, on which is the best one to start with, whether it's getting good quality sleep or exercise. We know exercise is our brain's best friend. Just hands down, absolutely. Not only does it get the blood flow up to your brain and it gets the nutrients and oxygen that the brain needs to work properly, but it also releases chemicals that grow and strengthen brain cells. And we do that through exercise. But we also have to have good quality sleep. And sleep really is going to influence if I choose to exercise today or not, because I didn't get good sleep, so I'm too tired to do it. I don't have the energy. And then sleep also just cleans out the brain every night. So it cleans out all this kind of waste that it produces every day, flushes it. And it's also a time where we take the stuff we learned from the day and it gets stored properly. So if we're not sleeping well, stuff may not get stored, or it may get stored in the wrong spot. So.
And one of the other things is a Mediterranean-based diet. And there's actually a diet that's called the MIND, M-I-N-D, the MIND diet. It's a combination between the Mediterranean and the DASH diet, which is for hypertension. And those are really easy changes. Whenever you look up the MIND diet, it actually is 10 do's and 5 not so much. There's no don'ts on it. And then brain activity, brain games. People talk about doing their crossword puzzles or their word searches, and we do want to make sure and do those. We just don't want to do the same ones over and over and over. We want to make sure that they challenge us, that they get a little bit harder, because the example we give is, if I'm doing the easy crosswords every day, it's like going to the gym and just working on this left arm every single day. I'm going to have a great looking left arm, but what's the rest of me going to look like? So we need to do those brain games that challenge us.
What about social isolation? Is that one? Mm-hmm. Because you need to talk to people, right?
Absolutely, we do.
Tell us about that. That's because I'm hearing that a lot with my friends that parents have. Mm-hmm. Like they just close down, shut down.
Yeah. Staying social is a brain health protector. So you want to stay social, but then the isolation part of it, which can happen fairly subtly and easily as we get older, for a variety of reasons. We did talk about our senses. So if we're not hearing or seeing as well out in like restaurants or in groups or at church or wherever we go, we start to just stop going because it adds more stress and I can't hear or see anyway. So then we're isolating more, and that the brain's not getting the stimulation. But then there's the emotional effects of isolation that are so detrimental.
And we saw so much of this during COVID, whenever people were going days at a time and never talking to anyone. We need to remain social. We were meant to be social. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be out and about and going every single day. And it is better to be in person, but if we can't be in person all the time, we've got Zoom, we've got FaceTime, where we can be looking at someone while we're talking to them. We have found even in people who have dementia, when they go to something like a day program, I've had families use the sentence, "It brought them back to life." And what's the difference? They wouldn't do puzzles for me at home. I couldn't get them to help cook at home, but I go to the day program and wow, well, it's because it's that part of the brain that's our social skills. It's that part of the brain where I'm with peers and I want to please. And the things that we see, again, it's like they've come back to life, and simply from remaining social. And then we also, in our program, we talked about connection, making sure that we keep the connections. As a caregiver of someone with dementia, it can feel very, very isolating, and we can even lose our identity to becoming a caregiver. And we lose the connection of husband-wife or father-daughter or son-father. We've got to keep the connection, especially as the disease progresses, so that we don't ever want our loved one with dementia to become a task, that it's someone that we're taking care of.
Holly, would you mind sharing? You shared in your presentation a woman or a man that during COVID. Would you share that story? It is powerful.
Sure. Yes, we had a gentleman who was coming in every day to see his wife, and he would come after work, and he assisted her at mealtime. He got her ready for bed. He lay in the bed with her every night until she fell asleep. It was just their routine. And then we got the call, and the call was we had to shut down. And just like that, no one could come in anymore. And even though we were still, most definitely still taking care of all of our residents, and she was being fed and she was being put to bed and taken care of, it wasn't her husband. And across the board with residents, we saw something called failure to thrive. And it's just where people started to isolate themselves. They didn't have as many people to talk to. There wasn't the stimulation. And we saw failure to thrive. And this particular woman, who was in her 50s at the time, actually went on hospice. She went on hospice, and it wasn't because her dementia had progressed so much. It was the fact that her husband wasn't there. And then they came up with something called compassionate visits. And he was able to come and see her because she was on hospice. And we watched her literally come back to life. He was able to come in again, assist her at mealtime again, lay in the bed with her again, put his arms around her again. She actually graduated off of hospice and lived another couple of years. And the only thing that changed was her husband being there and being her husband again.
I mean,
And being able to touch her and hold her. And there's something about knowing that there's someone there with you and that you're not alone.
absolutely. I mean, that is unbelievable.
I know
that
it was
story.
powerful. It was,
I
we
mean,
shared it with other communities across the country that, and it also was, that showed us that people with dementia can still read our body language, our tone, and our facial expressions, because there's more damage to the hippocampus in the brain, which holds the facts, than there is to the amygdala in the brain, which holds the feelings. And even if they no longer have the words, they still have the feelings. And they can look at our body language and read us long after we may think that they can. They may even have developed a flat affect, but they can still read us.
wow. Powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful. So, with families, I'm sure there's a lot we talked about denial, but then anger. So, what you two do, and James L. West does, and we talked about this last week with Cheryl Harding, with your CEO, but there's so many things you offer. And it's not just for dementia, it's for the families. How to teach family members to not be angry. I mean, Holly, you're leaving this show today and going and working with a church. And because, like you said, most people turn to their church for help. And do they know how? So you'll train. Well, share what you do. You're the education arm, of course, the counseling arm.
Yeah.
But share what you do.
Well, I'll start, and then because Holly does one-on-ones and support groups, and I'll let her explain that as well. But our goal is to educate and support family members and healthcare professionals. So it is training them about dementia, what it is, what it isn't. So there's the technical side of it, and how do you communicate? What are those best practices and strategies and managing expressions? What does it look like through the course of the disease? But also the emotional side of it. So what about anger? What about guilt? How do we do the support? And really just knowing that you're not alone. How do you manage the stress? We're doing a 9-week stress management course right now with a group of people. 9 weeks. So yes, we need to know about the disease and we're very educated on that, but also how do we care for ourselves and be healthy? Because when we care for ourselves as those care partners, then we can provide the best care for those that have the disease. And we can do it in a healthy manner, and we can create more joy, and we can have more of those connections. So we do in-person classes. A lot of our stuff is online. It is all free. If you can't join a class that's live online, like through Zoom, you can come to our YouTube channel. We record most of our programs. They're up on YouTube. You can access them at any time when it's convenient for you. We do have some downloadable ebook resources on our website as well. Tiffany showed you the thing we gave out, but you can download those on our website. We have so many other things, so kind of the list. But we have blogs as well, but then our support groups and one-on-ones that Holly really facilitates. I'll let you share about those.
And Tiffany, something that's different about the disease of dementia is that caregivers are not going to be doing this for days, weeks, or months. It's years. It's years. So what we have found is usually by the time a family reaches out to anyone for any type of resource, they're already years in. Many times they're years in. And I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I'm also a grief therapist. And you just don't find that on staff at many nursing homes or memory care centers. And because what's happening with the family? We talked earlier about that big D word, denial. From the moment we even think it might be, and that family starts through denial, that's part of the grief process. So families need, first of all, to be able to admit, I'm in grief, because so many people believe that the word grief means death. There's been a death. Grief means there's been a loss. There's been a loss. And so it's really hard to grieve the loss of someone who's still alive. And that's why we offer 4 support groups, 2 that are in person and 2 that are online. I've got 2 groups that are specific to grief. They meet monthly because grief is work, and we even call it grief work so that we move forward. And we're very specific about our words. We don't talk about moving on, because that sounds like we're leaving something behind. We're not leaving anything behind. We're moving forward, moving forward. So we do offer the 4 support groups, and then we do offer one-on-one sessions with family members as well.
That's amazing. And we are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, of course, but you're reaching people, families globally.
Yes.
That's what you told me with that YouTube
Yeah.
channel, of course. I mean, socials. And thank
We are.
goodness, I mean, COVID did bring us.
Yes.
It did. It
I mean,
did. And that's
Yeah,
where
we're grateful for that.
Yes, that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
our support groups are so different, because they're not like a 12-step program. We don't say, hello, my name is, and I may. We know why you're there.
Yeah.
And we'll have up to 40 people on a support group, on our online support group. And there's many people who come on, never turn on their camera, and never say a word. They just listen, because these are educational support groups. Lots of times we're doing Q&A, and we're talking about how did that make us feel. And it's a really safe place to talk about things that even with your family, many times you couldn't talk to them about, because they just wouldn't get it or understand, because they're not living it the way that you're living it.
So, what you're offering too, could a family member or a person that has a friend or whatever the case may be, could they go on and just listen and go, hey, we're seeing these symptoms. What do people think of it? Either write it in the chat or whatever the case may be.
Of
That's
course.
that's an option, right?
Of course it is.
To see.
Yeah. I also have people who will send me questions ahead of time, because they don't necessarily want to ask, and I just make sure and work it into the conversation.
Absolutely. So I do want to ask this question. What does it look like to walk along someone with dementia and honor who they are?
That's a great question. I think it's you're walking alongside that person. You're walking alongside that person, not the disease. So you're honoring who they are, the grown adult that they are, and their life and their uniqueness and their experience. And that's what you focus on. We don't focus on what the disease might take away. We focus on what remains. We focus on that person and what remains, even as the disease progresses. And we, the care partners, the family members, those that love them, we're the ones that can educate ourselves and accommodate that disease and meet them where they're at. When it's hard, when it's joyful, but it's looking at that person, having the skills to work with the disease and understanding that, but it's focusing on the person and what remains and nurturing that. And that's, our philosophy of care at the West Center, and that's what we teach our caregivers and the family members. And of course, that looks different for each person, and it looks different in each stage of the disease also. But it's focusing on the person and that quality of life and those connections. I think if we say, how can I connect with you today? What relationship do I want to have with you? And approach your care from that standpoint, that's the best place to start. Do you have any?
And keeping in mind independence and dignity. We don't want to go in and take over and do for someone while they still can. We want to help them. We want to accommodate the disease process, but we don't want to go in and take over. And like Jamie said, throughout the course of the disease, connection and meeting them right where they are. And they may not be where we are in even in time. Because in dementia there is something called the theory of retrogenesis. It's like they're going back in their developmental age. So there may come a time when they are actually 78, but they believe that they're 28. And they may talk about things that happened when they were 28. And rather than us say something like, that was 50 years ago, we're going to say, tell me more about it. That's amazing. Or if someone's looking for their mom or their dad and their mom or dad has passed 40 years ago, we're not going to tell them that they passed 40 years ago. We're going to say, tell me about your mom. That sounds like, tell me more about your mom. I'd love to hear about your mom. We go to their world.
Okay, I've read, I was telling you guys just in preparation for this, I mean, different theories, and they are theories, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But to live in their brain is so necessary. Don't say, no, that never happened, right? That's not where we should go.
We do not want to do that, because then you are arguing with the disease.
Right.
Because if we try to reorient them to time, if we try to reorient them, we're not arguing with them, we're arguing with dementia, and we're not going to win. No. So we do use things we call them therapeutic stories, where, let's say, paranoia is another one of those symptoms of the disease. Someone comes in and says, you're the one that took my money. Well, rather than argue, I didn't take your money. Okay, let me call the bank. Now, am I really calling the bank? No, but I'm doing 3 things. I'm validating their feeling, I'm fixing what the issue is, and then I'm going to distract them away. And we use a lot of distraction, and ice cream is God's gift to dementia. That's the key takeaway. Sweets, God's gift to dementia.
Oh, gosh, I love that. I love that. Okay, I'm going to ask you both this question because we ask every person that comes on this show. If you could take one thing from this show today, both of you will answer this, what would it be that you would want listeners to just grasp about this show? I'm going to start with you, Hollie.
There is still joy to be had even in the midst of dementia. Most definitely. Educate yourself. If you or a loved one has been diagnosed, or you even think that it might possibly be dementia, get the diagnosis and then educate yourself. We even say that's how we treat dementia, is with education, because the more you know, because too many times I have family members who go, I wish I'd have known this 5 years ago. I wish I'd have known this 2 years ago. If I'd have only known how to communicate, then maybe we've got to be present and find the joy in dementia.
Mine's fairly similar, but it is that you are not alone. You don't have to do this alone. There is, while I say that and it still feels isolating and very hard at times, but there is a community, wherever you live, there is a community of people that are doing this also, and it's connecting with those people through education, through the resources in the community, through support groups. Just to know that you're not the only one going through this is, I think, is life-changing, and then you can start the steps to improve care for yourself and your loved one.
You guys are amazing. You know that. I mean, you work so hard, and I'm just so impressed. I haven't since I met you both. And just thank you for all you're doing. I mean, I'm sure you have an amazing team, but y'all are leading the way and just helping so many families, and of course, the patients and the caregivers and the future, the doctors and the practitioners. So thank you so much for doing this today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. And everyone, thank you so much for following along and listening. This was a powerful one today, but we need to hear, and we need to, help and guide, and that's what we're doing here today. And thank you for listening. And you know what I say, every single Tuesday, keep being fabulous.